Hello learners, I'm Cynthia Mwa, your integrated science teacher presenter. Today our topic is benefits of evaporation and condensation in the water cycle. Benefits of evaporation and condensation in the water cycle. Now before we start today's lesson, let's look at our homework. On the other time we met homework on the topic I taught you on the other time. Homework number 1. State 2 main uses of the sun to the earth. State 2 main uses of the sun to the earth. 2. Good. Now let's answer the questions before we go to number 2. The sun gives light and heat to the earth. The sun gives light and heat to the earth. 2. Plants use sunlight to prepare their food. Plants use sunlight to prepare their food. Now let's look at number 2. Give 2 everyday uses of the sun. Give 2 everyday uses of the sun. 1. Farmers use the sun to dry their farm produce. Farmers use the sun to dry their farm produce. 2. Use the sun to dry our wash clothes. We use the sun to dry our wash clothes. 3. Schools use sunlight to learn during day. Schools use sunlight to learn during the day. Good. So let us look at today's topic. Now before we start our lesson, let us look at our lesson objectives. Lesson objectives. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to 1. Explain the water cycle. Explain the water cycle. 2. Explain evaporation and condensation. Explain evaporation and condensation. Now, benefits of evaporation and condensation in the water cycle. Benefits of evaporation and condensation in the water cycle. So, at the end of the lesson, you will be able to 1. Explain the water cycle. 2. Explain evaporation and condensation. 3. Benefits of evaporation and condensation in the water cycle. So these are our lesson objectives for today. So let's start today's lesson. Now the question is, what is water? What is water? Good. Water is a substance made up of hydrogen and oxygen. Water is a substance made up of hydrogen and oxygen. So as we can see on our screen, the picture, we have 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 molecule of oxygen forming water. Good. Now let's look at something else. 70% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. 70% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. So let's look at it. So when we consider the Earth to be 100%, we have only 70% as water, and only 30% for the land that we are living on. All the rest are water bodies. All the rest are water bodies. 70% covered as water on this earth. So we have few land. We have few land on earth. All the rest are water bodies. Good. Now this 70% of water include, we have ocean, that is sea, rivers, streams, waterfalls, swamps and lakes. We have oceans, that is sea, rivers, streams, waterfalls, swamps, and lakes. So these are water bodies on the earth. Now, what is water cycle? What is water cycle? So water cycle is the process by which the water moves from the earth's surface and the atmosphere. Water cycle is the process by which the water moves from the earth's surface and the atmosphere. So as we can see, it goes into the atmosphere. Yes. So water cycle is the process by which the water moves from the earth's surface into the atmosphere. Good. Through this cycle, water from the atmosphere is distributed all over the places on earth. Through this cycle, water from the atmosphere is distributed all over the places on earth. This benefits both plants and animals. So plants and animals get water through water cycle. Good. So because of the water cycle, the amount of water on our planet Earth does not increase or reduce. It is always the same because of water cycle. The amount of water on our planet Earth does not increase or decrease. It is the same. There are 4 processes involved in the water cycle. There are 4 processes involved in the water cycle, and we are coming to look at it. These are, we have 1, evaporation, 2, condensation, 3, precipitation, and then the last one, collection. So there are 4 processes involved in the water cycle, and these are evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and the last one is collection. Good. So we are coming to look at evaporation and condensation. Next time we shall look at the 2. Good. So what is evaporation? What is evaporation? Now, evaporation is the process by which heated water changes into water vapor. Evaporation is the process by which heated water changes into vapor. So when you put water on fire, when it boils, the water changes into vapor. And this is what we call evaporation. So in the house, you can try it. Get small amounts of water and put it on fire. Put it in a saucepan and then boil it and experience the evaporation we are talking about. So after this lesson, try your hands on evaporation. So evaporation is the process by which heated water changes into water vapor, as we can see on our screen. Small amount of water is put in there, and then you apply heat, and you see the process of evaporation. Good. How water changes to vapor. We are coming to look at it. How water changes to vapor. So when the water is on fire, when it starts boiling, now the molecules separate. The molecules separate. First, the hydrogen, one hydrogen will leave, another hydrogen, and then the last one, the oxygen. So they are now in separate molecules, different molecules, individual molecules. It will separate. So the water H2O changes to water vapor. Good. How evaporation occurs in water cycle. How evaporation occurs in the water cycle. Let's look at it. This is water body, a pond. The sun will shine on it and the water will evaporate. The energy from the sun gives the water energy to evaporate. The individual molecules, the hydrogen, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, they will be separated and they will evaporate into the atmosphere. So the sun is considered the most important part of the water cycle because its heat allows water to change phases. The sun is considered the most important part of the water cycle because its heat allows water to change phases. So the molecules will leave, they will be separated. So this is how it is done, evaporation. Now the next one is, what is condensation? What is condensation? So let's look at the picture on our screen and imagine what will happen in condensation. Look at it. The water is boiling. Yes. So let's talk about it. What is condensation? Condensation is the process by which water vapor changes into water. So from evaporation, the vapor would then go back to water, to form water. So condensation is the process by which water vapor changes into liquid. Changes into liquid. So when the water boils, it condenses and forms liquid, as we can see on our screen. You can also try your hands on it. Put water on fire, cover it, and then when you open, tilt the lid and have a cup, and you will see what is happening here. The same thing. So let's look at it. Yes. So condensation is the process by which water vapor changes into liquid, as we can see on our screen. How condensation occurs, we are coming to look at it. Now look at the molecules of the water, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. Now let's look at it, how they will form the liquid. So let's look at it. When the water is boiling, they separate. The molecules separate. So 1 hydrogen is gone. Let's look at another hydrogen. Yes, another hydrogen is also gone, leaving oxygen there. What will happen to the oxygen? Let's look at it. It's also going. Where do they go? Let's look at it. They will come back. So let's look at it. Yes, when they condense, when they get to the lid, let's look at it. They will form water again. So they are all back there and they will fall as water. So this is how condensation occurs. So you see that the droplets of water will fall in the beaker at certain temperature when it cools. So you see the thermometer, they're measuring the temperature of the water. Water boils at 100 degrees. Let's look at it. And when it boils, it will condense and then forms water. So that is how condensation occurs. Good. How condensation occurs in the water cycle? How does it occur? As it occurs. So look at it. Water will evaporate into the atmosphere Let's look at it. The sun rays, when it shines on the water, they evaporate. The oxygen and then the hydrogen will separate individually. Yes, they will separate and later come back, yes, to form water. Yes, that is how condensation occurs in the water cycle. So, after separation, when they cool, they will all come back. They form clouds. They form big clouds. And when they are heavy, they fall as rain. So look at the clouds. They will fall as rain. Good. So we are coming to look at the water cycle. Water cycle. From evaporation and condensation, we have water cycle. They are all processes in water cycle. So evaporation is the first stage of water cycle. So the sun's rays gives the water energy to evaporate into the sky. So we can see the water evaporating into the sky. Water from the water bodies, yes, will evaporate. This is a pond. And the sun gives the pond energy, and then it will evaporate into the sky. And when it gets into the sky, they form clouds. They form clouds, and condensation takes place. Yes, when they get into the atmosphere, individual molecules of the water, individual molecules of hydrogen, 2 molecules of hydrogen and then 1 oxygen, they separate and they come back to form water, and they fall as rain. They will fall as rain. Yes. Yes, let's look at it. This is water cycle. How rain falls. So let's look at it. Droplets of water, yes, get into the atmosphere, and when they are heavy, let's look at it. This is condensation, the process of condensation. Let's look at it. Let's look at what will happen to this. Look at it. They combine. They combine. Yes. They become heavy. This is water molecules. They become very, very heavy and they fall. Yes. Yes. This is condensation. Condensation. Good. Now, benefits of evaporation in water cycle. Benefits of evaporation in water cycle. What is the benefit of evaporation in the water cycle? 1. Evaporation is the primary means by which water moves from the earth to the sky to continue the water cycle. So this is the first stage of water cycle. So without evaporation, there will be no rain. The sun gives the water bodies energy to evaporate. So evaporation is the primary means by which water moves from the earth to the sky to continue the water cycle. 2. As water evaporates, it absorbs the heat in the atmosphere and cools the environment. So when water is evaporating, it absorbs the heat in the atmosphere and cools the environment. So when the environment is very hot, very warm, because of evaporation, it cools and the atmosphere becomes very friendly and we can live in it. So as water evaporates, it absorbs the heat in the atmosphere and cools the environment. Good. Another one is the evaporation of water from the earth helps to keep the air moist. The evaporation of water from the earth helps to keep the air moist. So the air in the atmosphere becomes moist, watery, to prevent it from getting heated. Good. Benefits of condensation in water cycle. Benefits of condensation in water cycle. Good. Condensation is responsible for the formation of clouds. So when water condenses, it forms clouds. Yes, and it falls as rain. So condensation is responsible for the formation of clouds. Clouds produce rain. This helps water to get back to the earth in the water cycle. So without condensation, there will be no rain. They condense and they fall as rain. So clouds produce rain. This helps water to get back to the earth in the water cycle. So you see, the rains spread water to many areas. The rains spread water to many areas, and we get water to wash our clothes, to drink, plants get it to prepare their food, and so many. Yes. Now, the summary of our lesson for today on benefits of evaporation and condensation in the water cycle. If water does not naturally recycle itself, we will run out of clean water. This is essential to life. If water does not naturally recycle itself, we would run out of water, which is essential to life. And if you don't get water, what will happen to you and me? We will die, because water forms 70% of our body. In our body too, water helps to transport so many nutrients to our body. So if you don't get it, we will die. Good. Now, let's come to the questions, or let's test ourselves for today on the lesson we have learned today. Let's test ourselves. Question number 1. After water vapor is carried to the atmosphere, what happens to it? After water vapor is carried to the atmosphere, what happens to it? It goes into outer space. It turns to gas. It forms clouds. It goes into outer space. It turns to gas. It forms cloud. So which of them is the answer? Tell me, learners. Guess? Okay, it forms clouds. It forms clouds. So after water vapor is carried to the atmosphere, what happens to it? It forms cloud. Good. Good. Clap for yourselves. You have done very well. Number 2. Because water is continuously changing states, we have dash. Because water continuously changes states, we have dash. We have water cycle, ocean that are salty, different temperatures. Water cycle, oceans that are salty, different temperatures. So which one is the answer? Learners, think about it. Okay, we have water cycle. Water cycle. Good. Question number 3. Water cycle always starts with water cycle always starts with dash. Condensation, evaporation, precipitation. Condensation, evaporation, precipitation. Now which one is the answer? Think about it. The first stage of water cycle. Evaporation. Evaporation. Good, good, good. You are learning. Good. Question number 4. Where does the energy drive the water cycle come from? Where does the energy to drive the water cycle come from? It comes from the moon, the sun, the stars. Which of them is the answer? Does it come from the moon, the sun, the stars? Think about it. Okay, the sun. So it's that sun that gives the water bodies energy. That gives the water bodies energy. The last question. The amount of water on earth is dash. The amount of water on earth is dash. Always changing. Always the same. Always reducing. Always changing. Always the same. Always reducing. Yes. Last question. The answer? Okay. Always the same. Always the same. The amount of water on earth is always the same. Good. Learners, you have done very, very well. Continue learning. Now let's come to our homework for today's lesson. Homework on today's lesson. Number 1, state 2 benefits of evaporation in the water cycle. State 2 benefits of evaporation in the water cycle. Question number 2, give 2 benefits of condensation in the water cycle. Give 2 benefits of condensation in the water cycle. Good. I'm giving you 1 minute to copy this homework. Copy it. Copy it. Well done, learners. Hope to see you next time. Continue learning because science is an interesting subject. Until then, bye-bye.